Good afternoon, Fairfield parents, and welcome to today's webinar. We're all very excited to have you joining us today, and we're even more excited to have Harlan Cohen here with us. He is a college life expert, advice columnist, New York Times bestseller, and he's here to give you some tips when it comes to navigating the college scene. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Harlan and take it away.
Thank you so much. Hello, parents, Fairfield parents. It's great to be here with you. I'm so excited to share it in the next hour. And tonight, depending when you're watching it, it might not be tonight. But tonight, when we are presenting this, I am going to be visiting with students. So I'm going to have the chance to interact with many of your children, and I'm going to help them. Because, right, they've been telling you they need some help, right? Some of them need no help. They're going to need help in the future. But I'm going to help them now so that when the future comes, they're going to be prepared. And you as parents are going to be totally prepared. So you can ask questions, and I'm going to address these questions at the end of the hour. So if there's something I share that you want me to explore a little deeper, make a note, send that in. And Elizabeth is moderating, and she's going to help me to answer or address these questions. All right, I have so much for you. This is 5 simple rules for college parents. I am Harlan Cohen. Some of you are familiar with me. Some of you have no idea who I am. So I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm an advice columnist. The book that most of you will know me by is The Naked Roommate and 107 Other Issues You Might Run Into in College. It's in its 6th edition. It's on the New York Times bestseller list every summer. It hit number 5 in the education list, which is pretty cool. I'm also author of a book, The Naked Roommate for Parents Only. This digs a little deeper because I know as parents you're so involved, and that's why I'm presenting this today, and I wanted to give you even more information. Then I have a workbook as well. I also travel across the country. Like I said, I'm going to be talking to students tonight at Fairfield. I was here in the spring, and it went over really well, so I was invited back again. And now I'm here with you. So one of the things I mentioned before is I love questions. I love interacting. This platform's always a little tough for me because I want to see you and I want to be with you and be present. So as much as we can do this, please feel free to share. Now, the reason that I do this is because high school, it doesn't prepare students and parents for what happens once students are on campus and once your kids are in college. Now, high school does a great job getting students into school, but when it comes to actually navigating the transition, they don't do a great job. This is a video that I found that I want to share with you that I think really is a great starting point for this conversation today.
Do you have any dependents?
I have a lot of independence. There are many things that I feel like as an adult I should probably know how to do, and I don't.
Everyone's ordering dinners because people don't know the basics about cooking.
You trying to tell me that you all pay your taxes?
Yes. Yeah. So maybe some of your kids know how to sew a button and they're great at boiling eggs and they can do a lot of these things. But when it comes to life outside the classroom, when it comes to the big issues, I find that so many students have a really tough time navigating all these changes. And the reality is, for you as parents, you are a partner in this experience and you have very few resources. That's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to be here, and one of the reasons that I love working with Fairfield University is because they really recognize that you are the most important person in your child's life. As important as the people here are, you really are a first responder. And I'm going to get into just how important you are. But the thing is, you need to be supported, and you need to be an individual who can support your friends as well. And I should also mention, I have 3 kids. I have 10-year-old, I have to remember, it's been a crazy week. I'm like, how many kids do I have? What are their ages? I have a 10-year-old daughter, I have an 8-year-old son, and I have a 3-year-old son. And I know how important it is for me to have an understanding of what's going on. And when your kids are 18, man, it's really hard because they kind of shut you out, at least at some schools. And then the thing is, when you try to be helpful, it's like this. They call you names. They'll call you a helicopter parent. I will never call you this to your face. I won't call you it at all, I promise. Or they'll call you a lawnmower parent, mowing people over. Or they'll call you a snowplow parent in the winter. Sometimes it's like they'll have many other names for you. And the thing is, I don't use any of those names. What I do is I call you the most loving, caring, and supportive parents who are facing new and unprecedented challenges. And that's who you are. The motivation comes from a place of wanting to take care of your kids. It's just, how can you be the best partner to support them and help them? So I want to help you. That's why I'm here with you. So I'm going to move quickly because I have so much to share with you. I want to let you know, before I get to the 5 things, the 5 simple rules, I have to set this up because the 5 simple rules are a product of where we are in terms of being parents and how college life has changed over the years. So what's changed? Okay, communicating then. Okay, you'd have a phone connected to a wall, right? If you wanted to cry, you had to really strategize. Where am I going to cry? Okay. Now you could go anywhere. Not only do you get to hear it, you get to see it. You get to see that roommate doing whatever they're doing across the bed from your child. You get to see it all. So you are there in real time, which is crazy. I have so many stories for you. But I was talking to a student who was saying that she was crying, and she was crying in public. And another student walked up to her and said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "I'm feeling really lonely and homesick." And the girl said, "I am too." And she started crying. And then they became friends because they were both crying. And that's one of the beauties of being able to communicate in a place where you're tethered. And this happened to be one where people weren't tethered. But this idea of being able to share constantly. You are in your child's hand. You are literally holding hands. And because of this instant communication, you need to be awesome at knowing how to respond. Social networks then, people would sit around and talk. That's how they would socialize. Now, it's out of control. You have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Snapchat. I'm on Snapchat. I don't think you're on Snapchat, but I probably your kid might add me on Snapchat, which I actually like Snapchat. And then there's Tumblr, and there's Pinterest, and there's LinkedIn. There are so many ways for students to stay in touch, which is good and also not so good because they're getting a lot of feedback that isn't always representative of the true experience people are having, their friends are having, so they may think that their experience isn't as good as everyone else's. And also, it's harder to make mistakes because when you make mistakes online, everybody sees it. So that's another big issue. It's harder to make those mistakes. A bit of advice, and I'm a little congested, so if I clear my self, please forgive me. It's really great for you to be in touch with your kids via social networks, observing, and it's better to observe from afar because if you're interacting too much, they're going to remember you're there. But it's really great because you kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in your child's life. You're not spying, you're just kind of a fly on the wall. Okay, next. News. News used to come in paper form. Now it is everywhere, and it is in your face. When something bad happens, you see it 24/7. Boom, 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 boom. Most of your kids, the vast majority of your kids are going to be incredibly safe. Everything is going to be wonderful in their life. But news can be overwhelming, and it can also change how we look at life. The reality is most students are safe. Students are better behaved now than they were when you were kids, okay, when you guys were in college. So here's the bottom line here. You see more, you hear more, and that means you need to know more. Parents are first responders, which means you need to know how to respond. That's what I want to help you to do. So these 5 rules that I'm going to present, these are going to help you to know how to respond. And I'm going to get deeper into each rule as we continue in this event. Rule number 1 is get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Rule number 2 is don't panic, think people, places, and patience. 3, their struggles belong to them, but their victories belong to you. Congratulations. 4, apply the 24-hour rule. And 5, ask them, what do you think you should do? Now, I'm going to give you a ton of information. You're going to have access to the replay, and I can also share some handouts that you guys can have access to through email or through a newsletter as well. So, The 5 simple rules, they're going to help you alleviate stress, allow your child to struggle in college. Struggling is a necessary, important part of this experience. Become a better listener and communicator. Empower your child to find answers and know how to respond when the unexpected pops up, because I promise you it will pop up. So let's get into these rules. Rule number 1, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. We stink at uncomfortable. High school's awful and uncomfortable. We don't want our kids to be uncomfortable, because if our kid's uncomfortable, there's a problem. There are 2 types of high schools: those that are really great at allowing students to be uncomfortable, and those who don't tolerate uncomfortable. Usually that's a reflection of the parents. So my problem is that no one told me college could be uncomfortable. I went to UW-Madison, an amazing school. Look at this picture. Isn't this gorgeous? Like, who doesn't want to go to school here? And I thought it was going to be an incredible time, because that's what I was told. And I have a brother 8 years old, a brother 5 years older. My parents went to college, okay? This is the same hill in the winter. This was like 8 months of the year. This was not on the front of the website. And the reality is that college can be a storm. It can storm socially, emotionally, physically, financially, and academically. These are the 5 big areas. And high school, like I said, it's not about transition. High school is about a destination. Life is transition, from birth to the end. Transition, transition, transition. We're great at search and selection. Transition, we're not good. And students don't have the skills to navigate transition. And parents, they're not trained to be patient to help their kids navigate the 5 big areas of transition. So the first thing you need to do as a parent is get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And this means renaming the first year the Getting Comfortable year. If you rename it the Getting Comfortable year, expectations can still be big, but there's a longer timeline. And when there's a longer timeline to reach your destination, it becomes much easier to be patient to navigate the change. And it starts with you. That first semester is a storm. It's a crazy storm of emotions. And if you get that, and if you can be more patient and tolerant and remind your kid about this, let me tell you, Fairfield's an amazing place. They've got so many resources. College, transition, it's not an amazing place, okay? And it's a real distinction. Every school in the world, it can be uncomfortable. I transferred from UW-Madison to Indiana because I didn't know it could be uncomfortable, and it shocked me. There are 5 big areas of transition that you need to understand as a parent. These are the 5 areas of transition that we encounter throughout life. Now, I'm also a syndicated advice columnist, and what I've seen is that so many students graduate with a degree and a job, but they stink at so many of the other areas of transition. There's the social emotion. There's social, emotional, physical, financial, and academic. The acronym is SEPFA, okay? I'll say it again. I'm looking at the camera. SEPFA. It's a horrible acronym, but it's one that is true to all transitions in life. Social, emotional, physical, financial, academic becomes professional, SEPFA. So if you could think of your own transitions in life, this is what you've had to deal with. This is what I'm dealing with. We're moving in the very near future. So that's social, emotional, and physical, and financial. Wow, we got 4 coming up. So when you're dealing with transition, you could either face it or you can fight it. Now, there are 2 types of people. There are those who fight the uncomfortable. And during transition, your child might face the uncomfortable, and you as a parent might fight the uncomfortable. These are people who are always looking to blame, hate, hide, attack anything or anyone that makes them uncomfortable. And these are not happy, and these are uncomfortable students, uncomfortable people. So your job as a parent is to really help your child to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Or if you're a grandparent, or if you're a guardian, whoever you are, it's really normalizing uncomfortable. Now, there are those other people in the world, and they can face the uncomfortable. And it's your job to face it. Because when we face it, we can acknowledge the truth. We can look inward. We can look outward. We can seek answers, guidance, support. And these people tend to be much happier and easier to communicate with. So the goal is we want to help you. I want to help you. And you want to help your child to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, normalizing uncomfortable. But to do that, you need to know what's coming. See, if you don't know about uncomfortable, you can't prepare for what's ahead. This is the equivalent of driving through a storm and not knowing what a storm is. It's having no experience on the road and driving through snow. Okay, I've done this, the white knuckler. I travel around the country. It scares me to no end. I have years of experience driving. I know how to deal with these changes, but imagine if you didn't, and imagine if no one told you. And this is the real problem. I get very upset when it comes to high school search and selection because we do an atrocious job when it comes to helping students prepare for social, emotional, physical, financial. It's mostly academic, okay? And then when they get to this new place and they're surprised, and it might not happen their first year, it could happen sophomore, junior, senior year, many of them struggle. There are some real issues that students as a whole are dealing with. So many students are dealing with emotional issues. Over 46.4% of students felt hopeless over the past 12 months. Almost half of students, half of college students, in the most incredible time of their life, feeling hopeless. And then over 34% feeling so depressed it's hard to get their work done. Let me share a few more of these uncomfortable facts with you. And the reason I share these with you, they're not to scare you. They're to help you to recognize what's really happening. 1 in 4 students will not return to the same school their sophomore year. 66% of surveyed students frequently or occasionally felt lonely or homesick. So if your kid's homesick, yes, you win. Congratulations. 2/3 of students feel this. 46.6% had a hard time getting along with their roommate. Over half occasionally were intimidated by professors. And 86.4% of students felt overwhelmed. Now, some of you might find this normal. Others, you might be a little surprised. Well, here's the good news. I'm going to give you a template, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to help your kids tonight, if you're watching this tonight, or, I will help them, depending when you're watching this. I'm going to help them to really get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So one of the things that I like to do, if you have a younger child or if you're in a place where your child's confused about what to do next, I like them to rank which of the following transitions are giving you the hardest time right now. Especially if you have a student who's struggling, which of these? If it's social, emotional, physical, financial, or academic, you rank these 1 to 5. 5 being the hardest, 1 being the easiest. The ones that are 5, well, this is where we need to identify what's making you uncomfortable. Once we can identify what's making us uncomfortable, then we don't have to panic. We could think people, places, and patience. It's the students who fight the uncomfortable, who can acknowledge the uncomfortable, who end up in trouble. And it's the parents who don't allow their kids to be uncomfortable that end up escalating problems, okay? You need to be supported as well, and that's why we're here. That's why the family resources are here. And this is why you as a parent need to make sure that you have your people and places. And I'll get to that in the next one. Everything is going to be okay. That has to be your mantra. You have to believe it because the truth is it will be okay. There's a big distinction between unsafe or uncomfortable. Unsafe is when your child's health and well-being is in immediate danger. Uncomfortable is I'm just not crazy about being in this situation. If you have a kid who's living on campus, I was talking to someone else, listen, uncomfortable, yeah, that's part of it, without a doubt. Living with someone when you've never lived with someone, that's just bizarre. We spend our whole lives avoiding strangers, and then we're supposed to live with one and watch them sleep? Like, look at, this is bizarre. It's just admitting this is weird and strange and uncomfortable. But is it unsafe? Probably not most of the time. And if it is unsafe, this is where you have a support staff to help you, and your child can reach out to that support staff. It's always your child being the advocate, but it's really important for you as a parent to distinguish, is this unsafe or is this uncomfortable? And for everybody, it's a little bit different, but I think it's pretty clear for you to determine which one of these things it is, and also to help your child to be more tolerant of uncomfortable. Rule number 2, when you face the uncomfortable, don't panic, right? You can't panic. And your kids, don't panic. Think places, people, and patience. Could be people, places, and patience. Could be patience, places, people. The 3 Ps, the most important part of navigating uncomfortable. So just to recap, if you can give yourself permission to be uncomfortable and allow your child to be uncomfortable, then you think people, places, and patience. So what does this mean? Well, you and your child need 3 places. And if you are an empty nester, you no longer have that place that used to be high school. You need 5 people who can be in your corner, and you need to give it a couple semesters, okay? Your children should always know that you're in their corner. Here's the catch, parents. Your kids are not in your corner. And I know a lot of you have children where you're best friends, have great relationships. This is not the time for them to be in your corner. Your stuff that you're dealing with, find other people who could be in your corner who can support you and help you. And I'm going to give you a great framework of how you can find the places and the people and how you can be patient. So let me go a little bit deeper. And while I share this, I'm going to talk about the places your children need, but you also need your places as well. So why do you need 3 places? And the reason you need 3 places is because it always gives you somewhere to go. It always gives you something to do, and you always have options. Students who have no place, especially if the place is in their room with their crazy roommate or their uncomfortable roommate, they have no options. And when you have no options, that's when you start to panic. Without places, you have nowhere to go. Your child will end up online, at home, or stuck in his or her room. You'll end up texting, calling, visiting, or moving in. You need your places at home. Your places have dramatically changed too. My daughter had this situation where she had some friends that weren't being so wonderful to her, and I reminded her of people and places. I said, sweetie, where are the 3 places you can do things during recess where you can find things that will make you happy? And she thought of the places, and then she thought of the people. And she told the girls who weren't being kind to her how she felt, and she had a plan to put herself in other places. Every student should have at least 3 places: academic, organizations, spiritual. I'll get into that so that you can really be a great director. Because if your child's not happy, you have to say, listen, where are your places at Fairfield? Where can you sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, work? It's a great little song. Sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, work. Sweat, play, pray, live, learn, lead, work. These are the places where you can do things, where you can build relationships, where you can build friendships. No one even tells us how to make friends, right? Can you believe all this stuff that no one ever tells your kids? Like, this is why so many students struggle. It takes time. So if they're challenged, remind them, where are your places? Where are your 3 places? Because we all need places, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but that's what it takes. It's time and putting yourself in places. All right, and amazing resources. Go to the website. You can also be the person to go to the campus website to help direct your student. Read the campus newspaper here at Fairfield University. Read it. Get an idea of what's going on. Check out the website. Look for info about activities fairs. Now listen, your kids should be doing these things, but if your child can't find their people and places, or if they're not into your recommendations, okay, then you can always say, hey, why don't you investigate this? Why don't you investigate that? Find the people doing the things that they want to do. They could talk to their RA if they live on campus. They could talk to peer mentors. They have a first-year experience class where they have students who are actually in the classroom with them, helping them. Every week you can say, hey, why don't, during your first year seminar, why don't you talk to one of the student leaders there, and they can direct you. Talk to campus guides, ambassadors, and again, students who are paid to help or volunteer to help. This is how they find their places, and you as well should be finding your places. Use parent and family resources as well. Take advantage of Fairfield University's website. Take advantage of all of their resources. Take advantage of the individuals who are here who can answer your questions. And instead of asking them to fix problems, ask them who are the people who can help my child, where are the places my child can find help. During family weekend, it's a great time for you to just check in and actually see the people and the places here on campus so that you can be reassured and you can be a better director. 5 people. Why 5 people? Someone's always there. You're never alone, and you always have options. I can't tell you how many students get to campus and they have no people. And this is me. I came to campus. I went to UW-Madison. I didn't have friends. My roommate needed to be my friend. Wasn't my friend. Tried to get into a fraternity. Didn't get a bid. Everybody got invitations to join but me. No friends. I did not know how to find people. I had no people other than my girlfriend. Then she dumped me. Her father compared our relationship to a dying puppy, urging her to shoot the puppy. It's a great wisdom. You could use that one if you want. And she shot the puppy, and I was all alone, and I had no people. The reality is there's always people. There's so many people who are on campus who want to help your child. The thing is, they don't always know to seek those people out. It's also very important that if your child's on a team, ton of athletes here at Fairfield, they need to make sure that they have people outside of their team, outside of that one place, so that they have balance. There are people who volunteer to help, there are people who are paid to help, and there are people your child can enlist to help. People who volunteer, peer advisors, student ambassadors, teammates, club and organizational leaders, spiritual leaders, current students that they meet through social networks. There are people that they can enlist to help, classmates, peer mentors, student workers, professors, teaching assistants, coaches, experts, advisors, spiritual leaders, leaders on Facebook. They can go to any club or organization, and they can find the students who are members of this organization, friends, family, and alumni from your high school. You see that picture, the Facebook page, that is Fairfield University Muslim Student Association. And I had a student who actually wrote to me who was coming to campus and said, I'm Muslim, how am I going to find my places and people? And I said, well, you know what, here you go. Start here and make this one of your places. You guys are surrounded with so many people who can help you and support you. Your students are totally surrounded. So you got it. I mean, this is great. You're so lucky. But the thing is, your kids, they just need to be the ones to find these people, and you can give them a little nudge, a little push, okay? Then there's people to pay. Therapists, doctors, counselors, nutritionists, coaches, tutors, advisors, staff and support. I always tell students, listen, you should have someone in your corner. You should have a therapist, okay? We should be born with therapists because really, don't we all need people in our corner, right, that we can talk to? You should be able to walk into an office and just like emotionally vomit, just all over someone and then be like, goodbye, right? Because you get emotionally vomited on all the time, right? And don't you think that you need a partner, so someone else who could be emotionally vomited on? I do, right? I do. You do. So I think that's a wonderful thing. If your child's dealing with big issues, making it very normal that you should have people in your corner. Also, counseling services here are wonderful, and some students want more and need more. And for you, it's always important that you have these people and that you have your places. I could talk to you for an hour just about you. You have to think, who are the people in your corner? Where are the places where you find connection and community? What are you doing to fill you up? Because the busier you are, the less you're going to be consumed with your child's well-being, and you're going to be much better at giving them the space. Patience. We are awful at patience. How much do you need? Well, this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 2 weeks, and it doesn't happen in 2 months. If you get to school and you're visiting with your child and they're uncomfortable, you can be like, that's awesome, okay? Show them this, all right? Replay this, because they're totally normal. 66.6% of students feel homesick. The idea is, what are you doing here? How can you be engaged here? Where are your places? It could take a good 2 semesters. It could even take a good 2 years. Really, I think at least a year, 2 years. If you think about change, think about being on a job, think about anything new in your own life, it takes a couple years to really get comfortable. That's almost half of this college experience. And for students who have been in the same community their whole life, that's really hard. So people, places, and patience. We're awful with patience. We're the worst. When college life surprises your child, don't panic. Remember the universal rejection truth, this idea that millions of people will give your child what your child wants, millions will not. There's a truth of the universe. It says not everybody's going to respond the way I want. When someone doesn't respond, I don't have to hate or hide. I have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I have to think places, and I have to think people, and I have to think patience. People, places, and patience. And by the way, that universal rejection truth, I do a whole workshop on College After Dark, that's about dating and relationships. Because if you look at dating and relationships, big social and emotional risk that we're so afraid of, and the thing we're most afraid of is rejection. There should be a course on rejection. When I retire, which will be never, I will do a course on rejection, because I think rejection is really the key to being incredibly successful. Of course, resilience, tolerance. It's how great am I at no? When I dream big, how great am I at taking a step in the direction I want to go and continuing on that path, knowing that not everyone and everything is going to respond the way I want, but understanding that if I have people in places, if I have people, places, and patience, I can train to work to be the best so that I can tolerate the universal rejection truth and get wherever I want to go. All right. There's a lot. I'm talking fast, but I got to get through it. What's your story? If your kid is struggling, if they're not feeling it, what's your story? Because everyone has a story. And if your story is that you're miserable and this place sucks and you hate it, you know what? That's going to be what happens. Okay? I understand what's happening. And I give you permission to feel what you're feeling, And you shouldn't clap because that's going to piss them off. Okay, don't do that. Let's tone it down. Let's be more empathetic. So yeah, sweetie, I understand. These things are all normal. It's hard to be where you are. But you need to tell a story of how this stuff's going to really help you. So what's your May 2017 story? How did you change this? How has this helped you? How did you find your people? How did you find your places? What's your story? And you tell the story as if it's already happened. It's the end of the year, and I had a bumpy start, but here's how I was able to find my friends. Here's how I was able to write the things that were making me uncomfortable. Tell your story. And you as a parent, it is so key. You have to tell a great story. And this is the hardest part. Someone wrote me this letter. Harlan, I'm graduating high school. My parents keep telling me, they keep getting into awful fights. It starts with them yelling at me about not being prepared for college, which includes school, friends, parties, laundry. They're worried about laundry. They also feel sad because they think they're the reason. Yep, because it's a parent who's worried about I didn't do a good enough job. However, I think I'm prepared, which is the most important part. And them saying this stuff to me is stressing me out. What can I do to prove that I'm prepared? If you tell a story of doom, gloom, of not having big expectations, of your child struggling, that will be the story that runs through their head. And you will not be in their corner, okay? I know you can be concerned and worried, and yes, you want to be vigilant, but you have to give them permission to go through this experience. And at the same time telling the story of, I know you're going to find resources. I know you're going to find help. I know you're going to work through it because that's who you are. And even if that's not who your kid was, you need to tell the story as if that's who your child is now, because you are the most important voice in their head. Rule number 3, their struggles belong to them. That's right, let them sit in it. I marinated in my struggles. Their victories belong to you. I marinated in mine because I didn't have a cell phone. I couldn't, terrorize my parents when I was so depressed that first year. But I marinated in it. I was a seasoned professional. I got through it, and that was the power. Their struggles belong to them, but their victories belong to you. And you should celebrate these victories. You've done an amazing job. And the experiences that your child's had in the past, those are going to be what shapes their future. And you can trust that they're going to make great choices. And if they didn't make the best choices, you can trust that they're going to learn from the choices they make, and they're going to need that freedom to be able to get to that next place. A quick story about a mom who felt like a failure following her daughter's first night on campus. Mom came into this room crying. The other parents were concerned, said, "What's wrong?" She said, "My daughter overslept. She is hungover. We were supposed to meet for breakfast. All her stuff's still in boxes. She never unpacked." And the mom was she said, "I feel like a failure. I feel like a failure." And the other parents in the room said, "No, you're not a failure. Your daughter's just going to live in a room with boxes. And you have done everything right. You are not a failure. Let your daughter live with boxes. Let her unpack when she wants to unpack. Your job is done. Let her struggles belong to her and celebrate all her victories." And I think that's such a hard thing. And as a parent, I know. But being a great parent is allowing your child to struggle. Most parents will struggle. Give them permission. They're going to struggle in this beautiful campus. Struggling is a gift. And if they don't struggle now, when are they going to? And if they can struggle safely, which is people, places, patience, they're going to learn. So our job is to create the dynamics so that our children can take big risks, healthy risks, smart risks, risks driven by what they want, not what we want, so that they can, and to make sure that they have the dynamics set up, people, places, and patience. That's how they can get where they want to go. And that's really this time in college. There are a lot of people who aren't really big fans of college. There's a lot of reasons why. And the costs and just students not having focus or direction, and what's the purpose. The thing that I think is the most valuable part of this experience is this: it's giving them the room to figure out what they want, and then the social, emotional, the physical, and working through the financial, and giving them the room to do that, so that they can get in the habit of thinking, okay, I've got a big dream. It's going to be uncomfortable at times. People, places, patience. But there's very few people who really give us that framework so that we can navigate those big changes. And to me, that transition piece, that's the most important part of the college experience. So there's a lot of articles you'll read about helicopter parenting, giving birth to a generation of entitled victims. This idea of if I do certain things, I'm going to get this. This idea of if I complete certain tasks, people are going to want me. And I love to turn this on its head. It's what does your child want? I think we get confused with entitled because we set it up that if you do certain things, there are going to be other things that happen. But I like this. What do you want to happen? What do you want? And if you want things to happen, surround yourself with people who are doing the things you want to do. And over time, those things will happen, but they're not going to happen right away. And they're not going to happen certainly because you've done certain things. You have to be great. Homesickness. This is a big issue when students are uncomfortable. Zoe's homesick. Steve is homesick. Pete is not homesick, right? The naked fact is that that is going to happen. It's a great exercise in how am I going to navigate uncomfortable. If you bring your kid home and are like, come on home, that's like giving someone with an addiction more of what they're addicted to. Celebrate that they love you and love home. Make sure that they stay here. And this is great that you'll be visiting soon. Plan on when you're going to visit. Plan on when they'll visit. And when you're here, make sure that you actually spend time here. And I know you might be watching this later on. But when you visit campus, it's important to walk through a residence hall. It's important to walk around campus because you're going to see your child interacting. They'll be like, hey, and someone's going to be like, hey, and they'll be like, hey. And then you'll say, I thought you said you didn't have friends. And they'll be like, well, they're not really my friends. They're just people who say, hey, but that's weird, okay? There's more happening, so it's great. And then also for you, if your child's struggling and navigating change, helping to find those people and places and reminding them, okay? One of the resources I have, and this is part of my whole boot camp program. I'll introduce you to this boot camp program if you're interested. But this idea of a naked plan, and you could just use this slide. When you're talking to your student about what's your story, what's your plan, these are great prompts. These are great questions to help direct them. What happened? Where are the places that you found help, who are the people who helped you, and then having a timeline. And whatever they're dealing with, whatever problem, whatever obstacle, this is a great framework to help them so that while they are struggling and while they're dealing with uncomfortable, they can work through it with a plan. It's easier to let them struggle when parents and students have places, when they have people, and when you can be patient. See the importance of that people, places, and patience? It's too hard otherwise, and it can be really scary. When they struggle, listen, resist the urge to fix. Listen, it's hard. Ask them if they want help. Asking is always a shock, because if you ask them, they're like, well, you're asking me? Some students just want to vent. Some parents are better to vent to than others. But ask them, do you want me to help you or just want me to listen? Help them identify places to find support. Help them to identify people who can support them. Help them to reach out and get help. This is so important. It's never you demanding answers. It's you asking the people here on campus who are the people and where are the places where your child can get help. They need to walk into those offices. They need to be the ones to articulate what they're feeling. And if they don't, then they're just going to have to live in the uncomfortable. Remember, it's not unsafe. It's mostly uncomfortable. And if you're ever worried about safety, there are people who can do safety checks. You can also, depending on FERPA, if you have a disclosure where you have access to medical records, you can interact with a health professional if there are big issues that you're concerned about. And then follow the next rule. Rule number 4, apply the 24-hour rule. Give everything 24 hours. When you're giving your child permission to struggle and feel it, relax. Give the problem time to breathe, like a fine wine. And if you like alcohol, you can drink a glass of wine. Because the thing is, you're not going to you're not going to fix this and help them to learn how to fix their problems. 24 hours is nothing, right? The problem's either going to be there tomorrow, or your kid will come up with a solution, or there'll be a new problem, and the old problem will no longer be a problem that you were so busy solving. Can't tell you how many parents I've talked to who say, I figured out the problem, solved the problem, but then my kid forgot about it, or there was a new problem. We're really impatient. We're awful at patience. Some things you can do to pass the time, and this is where it's great for you as a parent. You can redecorate their room. That's a great project. There's so many, we're going to be moving soon, and gosh, there's so many great websites. House and Pinterest. Oh, it's so cool. It's overwhelming. And then there's these great shows on HGTV. Skydive, I do not like that, but you could be an adventurous parent, okay? You might want to jump from an airplane with a baggie attached to your back. That's not fair. I did do simulated skydive. We did this fake skydiving where like they blow you up like it was cool. Try yoga. Find something where you can sweat. See a movie. Hang out with your friends. I think you should all have a group. Parents, you should all have a group where you can get together with other parents and talk about what's going on. If you are still involved with your high school, I love this idea of a Year 13 club, a parent organization where you can all get together year 13 because it's a year after graduation. You could start that and have like wine and cheese, or just have cheese, or just have no cheese, just meat. Just go for a walk. Have a group. Have your places. Of course, and this is really important, in case of an emergency, and a broken air conditioner is not an emergency, okay? Someone actually called the president of their university because their kid's air conditioner is broken, right? No, not an emergency. Have your child get help immediately. Direct him or her to the right person. If your child can't get help, step in, but explain that you're only making the calls because your child's not able to do it. Rule number 5, practice asking the question, what do you think you should do? These 5 rules should be introduced to kindergarten parents, okay? Because these 5 rules are all about this question: what do you think you should do? And when someone doesn't know, when a child doesn't know, and let me remind you, give them time to answer, okay? You can ask, where are the places you can get help? For every problem, there are at least 3 places, and who are the people who can help you? This idea of developing a habit. There's a great book called The Power of Habit. I'm obsessed with this book because it's amazing how we can program our brain to perform certain habit loops, the deepest part of our brain. This idea of this trigger of, when I don't know what to do, asking myself the question, what should I do? And thinking, this is normal, thinking places, thinking people. And then keep asking your children these questions. So the relationship you have with Fairfield and the relationship that you have with the individuals here on campus, it's really about you being a great director so that when they don't know, you can always help them. When they don't know the answer, direct them to people and places. Let them be the ones to fix it. A lot of you love fixing. You love being necessary. Find other ways. You're so necessary, but this is the part where your child has to figure this out. And be patient. And if they struggle, I always say September is the month to celebrate your C's, D's, and F's. And you might be thinking, celebrate my C's, D's, and F's. Celebrate their C's, D's, and F's. What the hell are you talking about? This is costing us tens of thousands of dollars. We're not celebrating. The idea is you celebrate because you give them the room to find their people and places so they can get help. Because if they can address it now, by the time December comes along, they're going to fix the problem. But if they're too afraid to address it with you, then they're not going to use you as a resource. So this idea of celebrating and being patient. You know, we want our kids to be successful, and sometimes they struggle. That first year is really hard. It's a really tough year. Some students end up on probation. Now, I don't want your child to end up on probation, but that moment of, I'm accountable to someone else other than you, mom or dad, I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who have faced that moment, who have come back from it more powerful and more intrinsically motivated than ever before. Your student's going to be successful because successful students are successful no matter where they go and no matter what their course is. But this journey of really getting great at transition, that's how they become like incredibly successful and self-sufficient and great leaders who can help others along the way. Your job is to support, listen, and empower, not overpower. And I know this has been a very one-way conversation. Parenting is so complex, and your situations that you're dealing with your child are things I can't even always understand. You know, I can't. But I do understand that there's a framework that we can use to help, and that's hard. And it's a muscle for us as well as parents. Rule number 5 can only be followed by parents who are comfortable with the uncomfortable, know the people and places on and off campus, allow their children to safely struggle, and are patient enough to apply the 24-hour rule. So let me recap this. These are the 5 simple rules. Number 1, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Number 2, don't panic, think people, places, and patience. 3, their struggles belong to them, but their victories belong to you, and there's going to be so many of them. Celebrate them. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but yeah, those victories, you're amazing. Apply the 24-hour rule. Practice asking, what do you think you should do? And these are the rules that will help guide you so that you can help your child through this next part of their life and beyond. Now, I don't know exactly why you're here. Some of you might be excited or nervous about these changes. Some of you might have a child who's the first one in the family to attend college. Congratulations. You might be worried about your child making mistakes. Yes, they will make some. Your child might have struggled in the past. And I think that's really scary when you have a child who's made poor decisions in the past and you're really afraid of them making more poor decisions. And the reality is they probably will, but if they have people and places, they're going to be okay. And then you might have a child that's going far away. The distance can be really hard. You might be concerned about safety and security on campus. It's a really very real concern. And if you have any of these questions, there are people who can address all of these concerns. And it's important your child be aware of these things. But I do know that there's one thing. I hope that you know that parents who know what's coming, they're better equipped to alleviate stress, direct their children to the right resources, and you can be patient during this time. Now, I want to be in your corner, not just today, but in the future. I'm going to answer your questions in a minute, but I want to introduce you to something that I created. It's called Naked Roommate College Boot Camp for students and parents, because I've seen that high school really doesn't do a great job helping students to navigate transition. So I created this boot camp, and it's live events, just like this, videos, online resources, and the goal is I want to help so that you and your child are supported and that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. So the way this Naked Roommate Boot Camp works is I run student and parent workshops. I hosted one in August. It was a pre-college workshop that you'll have access to. It was about preparing and setting goals, planning, mapping out what needs to happen, and navigating. So if your child needs to be centered, I think this is even a better time to watch this, because now it's like, okay, I'm here. I get what's happening. And that's the problem with so much of this is we don't know what we need till we need it. And when we need it, a lot of times it's too late. But it's not going to be too late because I am proactively working to support you and your child. Also, parent workshops. This workshop will be replayed, but I also have a really great pre-college workshop that you'll have access to as well. A little different than this, but you'll have access to that, 24-hour access. I'm running some additional workshops. I'm going to be doing a college after dark workshop again, fix-it workshop to deal with all of the immediate problems, another fix-it workshop later in the fall, addressing breaks, Thanksgiving, things of that nature, winter break, and then training for the sport of taking risks. I also have a financial workshop that I'm developing, and then if you have a child who is younger, who's going through search and selection, I'm going to be hosting a lot of workshops to help them to really be directed. There's modules and lessons that are part of this boot camp. These are additional resources. You really don't need to do anything but just participate in the workshops and access the resources if you need them. There are also amazing resources like this 5 Parts of College Transition. This is a really cool worksheet that helps to guide you or your child through the big 5 changes and helps them to identify their people and places. So it makes it really easy. I equate it to having a jar full of coins that are all mixed up and using this as kind of a filter to be able to organize thoughts into really manageable pieces. Membership in Naked Roommate Bootcamp includes 10 live workshops, college planning workshops, track for students, track for parents. There's a Naked Roommate workbook. I include a lot of that, private Facebook groups for students and parents, and then there are also bonus videos. And sometimes I even jump on a call. I have a small group of people, so I try to be as involved as I possibly can. So you get all this, and this is the only thing that I do where I charge people for this, and you get access to all of the workshops, to all the videos. It's lifetime access. It's for your family, it's for your kids. I'll create some new user IDs if you need those as well. And it's just a one-time payment. So if you're interested in this, great. I would love to be in your corner and continue to be in your corner. I will be in your corner regardless, and I'm here to answer your questions. Oh, we just added a bonus. I forgot about my bonus. I'll send you a copy of one of my books if you sign up as well, and just mention that you're a Fairfield parent, and I'll be more than happy. You know what I could do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you both books. If you're a Fairfield parent, write Fairfield Parent, and I'll send you a Naked Roommate and a Naked Roommate for Parents book. So if you're interested in doing that, I'll do that, because I would love to get you copies of both of these books. The way you sign up is you go to nakedroommatebootcamp.com. nakedroommatebootcamp.com. It's really easy to fill out. I'm going to leave this up on the screen because I have time now to answer your questions. And they could be about anything. It could be about the boot camp. It could be about the issues we discussed. Do we have questions?
We do have a few questions. The first one,
writing your questions.
The first one, I know that you had said that you will do a more specific webinar relating to finances, but one parent wrote in and just wanted you to kind of speak more a little bit about the line of college parenting with regard to finances, how to kind of navigate that situation, where to draw the line, et cetera.
Well, thank you for that. And in this webinar, it's so hard to just deal. There's so many issues. And I am putting together a whole financial planning webinar, which also is going to include budgeting, and that's something that I'm currently putting together. So to answer your question right now, the most important thing is that students should have a budget. Every student should have a budget. And they'll say, I don't know, I don't have a budget. Well, talk to an upperclassman who has a budget. The first year experience course, remind me of the name of the course again.
FYE, you're correct, first year experience.
So it's FYE, and in FYE, your student has access to other students. And you can use that as a vehicle. Talk to a student in your FYE. Ask them, how can I put together a budget? Where do I start? Because there are students who can direct them. They can go to the financial aid office. They can talk to their advisor. They can talk to someone who's a sophomore. Now, a lot of times, they'll give you an answer of, they just don't know where to start. Well, you can tell them that's where to start. Another thing to do is when they go to the financial aid office is to talk to their advisor, and your child needs to have a good relationship with their financial aid advisor. If that isn't a great relationship, they need to find someone else. They need to find a match because it's so important. They need to find someone who's like them. This is what I always tell high school students. If money is an issue, find someone who comes from a similar dynamic, who's a junior or a senior, and talk to that person who's a junior or senior and ask them, how did you do it, okay? Because everyone's going to give them the information. They're going to share their story. Everybody's got a story. So they talk to those people. So this whole idea of people, places, and patience, it's who are the people who have been there and done it? Who are the people who are paid to help you? Who are the people who could direct you to other people who have gone through this? And then places, your classroom, financial aid office, also your advisor. If you're in an organization, talking to the other members of that organization. If you're an athlete, talking to those individuals, talking to the coaches. Also, having a really good sense of what it's going to cost when I graduate in terms of loans, of what that payment, really understanding what that's going to be like when I'm a graduate and how much is that going to translate to. So I'm sorry that I've kind of mashed this into like one little ball. I would say number one is budget, because the budget's the most important, because when your child has a budget, that's going to be a frame of reference to then be able to work on all of the other pieces beyond graduation. And even if you're paying for it all, if you're helping, budget. First semester, there are big one-time costs. This is why having someone who's been there and done it, especially a sophomore, is incredibly helpful. And also, again, you reaching out to the financial experts here on campus, and also being part of communities on the Facebook group, my Naked Roommate Facebook group. Reach out to other parents, write a question, go to the Facebook group and say, what are the 5 best places where you were able to get financial guidance? Who are the people who helped you most? Those questions of where are the places and who are the people, talking to people who've been there and done it, I find it's really the way of hacking. It's a shortcut to get to where we want, okay? I feel like I did a decent job with that.
Yeah, great. We had a few questions regarding the event tonight. Some parents want you to speak a little bit more about that. Specifically, one parent wrote, I'm afraid that if I suggest to my son that he go to the seminar this evening, that he won't go because the parent has suggested that he does.
I know. Isn't that awful when you when you suggest it? How about this? How about suggesting they don't go, okay? You could say, I did this webinar, this guy did this thing, it's happening tonight. I know you're not going to go because I know you don't want to go, and probably no one's going to go, but I wanted you to know so that when you don't go, you know. Okay? That's one way, like really focus on the don't go, and then you could send them a link or send them a video, and you could just talk about, and you could say, the problem is, here's the other, you go, don't go, the thing that really bothered me, and talk about what bothered, say, he was really honest, and he talked a lot about, alcohol and sex, and it really bothered me, and I don't want you to hear this, okay? Then now, see what we're doing here? But you can mention it in that way. And mention it, because you need to mention it, but you could also mention that he also talked about how I don't have to be, how I don't need to irritate you. And you could say, have I irritated you? Am I being okay? So if you also start from a place of asking, am I being okay? Because I went to this webinar, and Harlan, who's doing this thing tonight, really told me all these things I think I'm doing wrong. Oh my gosh. Now it's like you're going to them doing something wrong, and there's this guy you don't want them to see. So this idea of approaching it from a place of being like, vulnerable and being loving, and also you can be fun and direct them to not go. But hopefully tonight they'll get people who I think there's a lot of people who are going to go because they're offering credit as part of their course. It's something that they'll be incentivized to go to. So I hope they go. It's really fun, and it's a really good time. This is my third time here in like 3 years. I love this place. This is like, I have a good vibe here. I like the students here. This is a good place. So hopefully they'll go. Okay, cool. I can call them. Should I text them? Should I text your kid? Maybe I'll text your kid. All right. I'll be on Snapchat I'll talk about this, how parents are so afraid to talk to you to get you to go because they don't want you to not go. So I'll mention this, but I won't mention you because I don't even know you. Okay.
2 more minutes, 2 more questions, but I'll group them together because they kind of relate.
Yeah.
We had somebody write in, they have a commuter student. We also had someone write in living very, very, very far away. And both parents just kind of wanted you to speak to what those experiences are like and kind of just student engagement in general with these unique populations.
I think I might even break it into 2, only because the commuter part in everything I've mentioned is for commuters, okay? I mean, the only part is roommates, but eventually they'll have roommates, and a lot of times you're their roommate, so that creates a bigger problem. Commuter students, they need to have their places. If they don't have their places on campus, if their places in their car or just in the classroom, they're not going to be connected. And parents really need to understand this, especially first-generation students, that they need to have their places. And I'm always a big fan of, if money is the issue, then figure out a way to live on campus next year. And the only reason to live on campus is because if you're attending these events at night, if you're immersed in this world, you're going to feel much more connected. Now, if you're not living on campus and that's just not an option, then really making sure they're anchored with that place. Maybe it's a spiritual organization. Maybe it's campus activities. Maybe it's student government. And they might say, oh, I don't want to go because I have to work. Find a job on campus. Find a purpose where you can get paid on campus. Make being on campus as important as those other things that are pulling you off campus, because that's how they're really going to be immersed. Connecting with other commuters, being involved with commuter leadership. I always say having a role on campus, a leadership role, gives you a place where you're anchored, and it gives you a purpose. It gives you something to say to people, and it gives you a reason to interact. So that's really important. And then being far away, physically you're far away, but because of technology, we're so connected. And one of the risks is you want to make sure that you're having boundaries. Your child's going to be safe. Your child's going to be wonderful. Your child is going to be supported. One of the risks that a lot of long-distance students have to face is this idea of the fifth wall of technology. The fifth wall is the internet, cell phones. It's all these things that emotionally I can stay connected to you through technology, but physically I'm on campus, but I'm not really here. So really encouraging that, having your communication be limited, and at the same time, for you being far away, when you are here, is really walking around campus, is really knowing the places, really being comfortable with these people so that you can be able to direct your child to these resources. And the other part is a job. Jobs are great because jobs really give your children a place to go and people that they're surrounded by. So I think that being far away, that's one of the things that really force us to be much more patient, because we're and I love Greek life, spiritual life, really having a connection where they can over time find their way. So I love this. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm so grateful that we can have this time together. The one part I love more than anything is interacting. So please visit my Facebook page, Harlan Cohen, or it's facebook.com. You can see it right there. It's on the screen. You can follow me on Snapchat. You can follow me on Twitter. And if you're part of that Naked Roommate Boot Camp, you have access to me. I'm like all over that, and I really try and be as responsive as I possibly can, because I just want to help you guys, and I want to help your kids. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to continuing this relationship, and thank you, Fairfield, for having me. It's been a wonderful hour with you all. Thank you. With y'all. All of a sudden, I'm from the South. I'm from Chicago. It's been a great time. Thank you all so much.